Welcome everyone. Welcome to Physics by Aryan. I am Aryan Mehra. Today I am conducting a session for what to do after Just. There are many questions after the Just result. There is a good academic career which we can make with the Just. So Just is one of the best exam. So once the Just result is out, you have to do some certain things to get an admission in integrated PhD or PhD. If okay, so how you can proceed with that? There will be an interviews and so on. So we will be covering how we can prepare for the interviews, how we can apply for different institutions, what how to select the institution, which institutions to go to, because mostly interviews are offline, so you cannot go to entire India because it's quite expensive as well. So which institute to choose, and what is our chances to get an final selection if we go and give the interview, what are the possibilities that we will actually get the admission. Out of 5 interviews, in how many interviews we definitely get a final selection. All these questions I will try to discuss. Okay, so I am Aryan Mehra. A, I have qualified Just exam, Gate exam, IT Jam exam. I have done my masters in physics from IIT Delhi. Then I move on doing PhD from IIC Bangalore in the Center for Nanoscience department. I have given more than 20 interviews. So almost all the good places in India, I have given interviews at that places in last 2 years. IIC, I have given interview. ISERS, almost all the ISERS have given interview. So Pune, Bhopal, Pune, I wrote 2 times. Trivandrum, Tirupati, Kolkata. In all those ISERS, I have given the interview. In IITs, I have given the interviews. Top IITs, Bombay, Delhi, Madras. Then other institutes like TIFR, ICTS, TIFR Hyderabad, HRI, IRIS, Saha Institute, SN Bose Institute, PRL. Okay, all these institutions I have given the interview. Then UPSC geophysics interview I have also given. So more than 20 plus interviews I have given, and based on the experience of those interviews, I can definitely tell you what you can expect in an interview. And most of the interviews I have qualified. I have multiple offers for integrated PhD. I had multiple offers for PhD, and out of that I selected IIT and IIC for my education. So now I will be sharing my experience, or the pure experience based knowledge. It's not a theoretical knowledge but a experience based knowledge. First of all, first thing that you need to know is institutions, how to apply. So let's say you have qualified the Just exam. So now your Just result, you have some Just rank. So let's say a person don't have a very good Just rank, but a decent rank of 300. So this we will consider as an example. So you have a 300 Just rank, and now what you have to do? What is the next step? So now you have to decide. So first of all, you have to see either you are in integrated PhD you want to apply for, or want to apply for PhD. You are a BSc student or an MSc student. This everyone knows. So now second step is you need to make a list of the institutions where you can apply. So if you are an integrated PhD student, if you want to go for integrated PhD, you can apply at all the ISERs. You can apply in IISc, but IISc date is already over. So if you have not applied it, then you cannot apply now. But if you have already applied, then fine. Then other than that, where else you can apply? SN Bose. Then where else you can apply? Then HRI. What, where else you can apply? You can apply in TIFR. Where else you can apply? There are so many extra places where you can apply. I have given the entire list of places where you can apply on the Telegram channel. So all these institutions, similarly for PhD. For PhD also I have made a list. All the ISERS, IIC, SN Bose, HRI Institute, DIFR, Raman Research Institution. So many additional institutes are there for PhD as well. Almost every good place in India accepts the Just score. They accept the Just score, and you can apply at almost every place in India. Okay, so next step you have to see is you have to go to the website of each and every institution and look for when they open their application portal. So every institution will open their application portal. So every institution will have their application portal, and the fees, most of the applications will be free. Most of them will be free, or there will be some charges from 100 to 400 rupees at some places, but mostly they will be free. Okay. So once you apply to these places, and when these updates are open, so these keep on coming from month of May till the end of May. In the month of May, many interviews application will open, and many have already been open. So start looking from today. Whenever any application starts, apply for that. Doesn't matter what your rank is it 300, 400, 200, 100? If you have qualified just, if you have a valid rank, apply to each and every institution. That is the best policy, because most of them are free. Doesn't matter if you can go to interviews, fine. If you can't go to interview, still fine, but apply to all the institutions. Number one step is that. Don't think about your rank, don't think about your possibility of going for interview, just apply for that. Number one step is clear. We have to go to each and every institution's website, and which institutions to go to, you can see the list in my Telegram channel. What are all the institutions for which you have to look out for the admission after just. Fine. So once this is done, what will be the next step? So once you apply, so you can expect that you will get an interview call. So you will definitely get an interview call from some place or other. If you qualify just, will at least under 400 rank, and it can be more than 400 if you are from some other category or you are under PhD. So for PhD, even more ranks, at even at higher ranks, you get an interview call. But for integrated PhD, more or less than 400, you, if you have more than 400 rank, there is very less possibility that you will get interview call. But still, you should apply. So once you get an interview call, how do you get an interview call? You will receive an email. They will be telling you, okay, your interview is on is this date. Please tell us, will you be coming or not? Then you have to tell that will you be going or not. So I will suggest you always say I am coming. Don't even if you don't are not going, just say I am coming. Okay. So that is the best policy. Then you can actually think about. So interview call will come in, let's say by end of May or May mid. These are the expected dates. So then interviews will happen. Now, how the interviews will happen? Interviews will happen in two modes. Either it will be offline interview or it will be an online interview. Many places still conduct an online interview. They started conducting online interview during Corona time and they never stopped. They keep on giving online only because it is more convenient for students to come, for them to conduct an interview. But now many have shifted to offline interviews. So before offline interview, some places also conduct their exam. Once you go there, they conduct an exam. And in online interviews also, many IITs also conduct their exam. So this exam, mostly you cannot prepare for this exam extensively, because this exam is a knowledge of your MSc, your BSc. Okay, I will come to how to prepare for this exam, but I would recommend you don't prepare for this exam first of all, because there is no limit to that. And very few institutions will conduct their exam. No, it's not like that every institute will conduct. Like out of 10, only one or two will be conducting their exam. All others will directly be taking your interview. So focus on interview part more. So how we can focus on interview part? What was my experience of interviews? Once you get an interview, so let me give you either online perspective and offline perspective, both. So offline interviews, you can decide 3 to 4 places. So which 3 to 4 places you want to go to? You cannot visit entire India. At max, you can go to 3 to 4 places. I would say no, don't go more than three. If you actually go to 3 places, then there is almost 100% probability that you will get at least admission in one. It's very unlikely that you give an interview in 3 places, 4 places, and you don't get interview and you don't get selection from any of those. Okay, so top 3 or 4 possibilities, whichever you have. Let's say 4 institutions, top 4 institutions, whichever you are getting interview call from, go to those places. Don't go more than 3 or 4. It will be too difficult for you. You will at least spend 50,000 in doing that only. So don't spend too much money. Just spend 5-10,000 rupees and go to 3-4 places. Second of all, give as much as possible online interviews. There are many online interviews. Even if you can't, if even if your institute is conducting offline interview, I will give you one suggestion. Just mail to them. I have sent this mail to 2 institutions and they actually agreed to take my online interview. The interviews were offline, but I told them I have some family emergency. Someone in my family is not well. So please conduct my interview online. And they actually conducted my interview online. So try that. Say you can try that. Can you please conduct my interview online? That is again a possibility. In IISc only, I can give you an example. I got admission in IISc. The interviews were offline, but I said in somewhere someone in my family is not well. I cannot come, but I really want to give this interview. Can you conduct it online interview? And they conducted my interview online, and they gave me the admission as well. Okay, so you have to think like that as well. So that is also my suggestion. But you have to go to many places. Also said no to me as well. Many either said okay, we cannot do this. That's also a case. But try it. So then, if it is an online interview, which will be there, which is definitely will be there in some of the ISERs, okay, and it will definitely be there in PRL, okay. So there are some places like these where online interviews are there. How do you conduct an online interview? You should have good camera, like webcam or some phone camera, good internet, and some blank pages, white pages on which you can do the rough work. You should check it beforehand that whatever you are writing and when you are showing on the camera, is it visible or not? And are you able to do a mock interview of 1 hour or let's say 40 minutes? How you will check that? When I will take your mock interview, if you will are interested, you can fill the form. I am taking the free mock interviews. You can check that during that time, so that it will be best. Your setup will be checked. And in exam in the offline interview, you just have to go there with all your documents. So in offline interview, documents is very important. So go with all your documents. Don't miss out any document. They will bug you if you will miss out any document. Okay, so go with all your documents. Your documents will be verified and your interview will happen. So any questions still here? Then I will move to how to prepare for interviews. In applying process, any question by integrated PhD students or PhD students? Fine. Is it fine till here? Should I move to interview preparation plan, or how you should prepare for interview? Okay, so let's move on to preparation plan, interview preparation plan. So interview preparation is much easier than you think. It's much easier. I used to think that interviews at such a top institutions will be very hard, but they are not. They are extremely easy interviews. I felt that okay, these are the kind of questions they are asking, and people are not able to answer such simple questions. Why? Because they are scared of that. So how you can prepare? So I will cover this in two segments. Number one, let's say you are an integrated PhD student, and number two, let's say you are a PhD student. So for integrated PhD student and PhD student, for both, you must have to select three topics which are your favorite topics. That is for sure. Most of the interviews ask for what are your favorite topics. Number one, for integrated PhD, you you have to select. I don't say have to, but select EMT. EMT will be asked to you in many of the interviews. That is for sure. That you cannot skip EMT. Other some of the topics which are famous for integrated PhD interviews are optics, mathematical physics. Okay, these three are very quite famous. Then modern physics. Okay, and very basic of electronics. Very basic electronics and very basic of mechanics. So these are the topics from where the interview comes. If you talk about EMT, if you talk about EMT, if you can read Griffith's book, chapter number 2, 5, and 7, there won't be even a one question which will be outside from these three chapters. All the questions which they will ask you from EMT will be either from the solved example or unsolved problem or some theory of these three chapters. That is for sure. They have asked me the direct questions in integrated PhD interviews from Griffiths. Then optics. There is book called Subramaniam. You have to again read only three topics. Number one, interference. Number two, diffraction. Number three, polarization. If you read three chapters from optics, there is not going to be a single topic which will be outside the optics from this. In mathematical physics, you should have a very good idea of functions, different kind of functions, hyperbolic functions, exponential functions, modulus functions, etc, etc. But what are the discontinuities on those functions, how to plot those functions? Okay, all these informations you should know in mathematics. Other than that, Fourier series, what are the uses of Fourier series? How do you evaluate in under what condition Fourier series works? Differential equations. What are differential equations? Where do we see the differential equations in physics? Okay, all these basic questions, they are not going to ask you to solve any differential equations. They will only ask you the meaning of differential equations, like what is linear differential equation, where do you see linear differential equation in physics, where is homogeneous differential equation, where do you see homogeneous equation, where do you see the special function differential equations. Okay, so all these basic questions, they are not going to ask you any particular questions regarding that. So where do you see Fourier series? Whatever is in your JAM syllabus, whatever topics are in your JAM syllabus, what are the basic meanings of those? Okay, and where do you see that in physics? Where do you use those mathematics in physics? And one question which will be definitely be there is graph question, and in graph question you should know all kind of functions. So how do you practice all kind of functions and all these things? So whenever you are reading EMT, whenever you are reading optics, each and every graph that comes your way, so you have to ask only two questions in graph. So let's say you have some graph which you are reading. So let's say you were reading EMT, and EMT, some graphs are coming. So in graph, you have two questions. Number one, what is on x-axis? What is on y-axis? Number two, what is a function? What is the equation with which this graph has been drawn? So equation is y equals to x, so the graph will be linear. Similarly, what is an equation of this graph? So if you can ask these two questions, okay, and you know from the how to plot this graph from this equation, then if you practice for all the graphs which will come in EMT and all the graphs which will come in optics, then your graph portion is covered. For example, to me, example wise, if I tell you, they gave me very simple graphs like sine x by x. They said plot this graph, but if you will try to plot this kind of graph with your certain knowledge, then you may not be able to plot it. But if you have read diffraction, then this is a graph of diffraction only. If you have read the diffraction, then this graph comes in diffraction only. So whenever you see any graph like interference, in interference, we know this kind of graph comes. Okay, but we don't ask what is an equation of this graph. And in diffraction, what kind of graph comes? Decaying graph. But we don't ask what kind of equation is this graph. So this graph has this equation. This graph has this equation. So don't think that they will give you some random graphs. They will give you, excuse me, they will give you graphs which are somewhere in the physics book only. So all the graphs are already there which they are going to ask you. But you have to be very careful whenever you're drawing some graph. You must know what is an equation of that graph. And the similar graphs will come in your interview. Okay, and even if it is not very same graph, but from the standard knowledge of graphs, you will be able to draw the graph. Okay, now next thing. So maths is done. These three things you have to do it. If you want to say modern physics as your favorite subject, then you have to remember all the modern concepts like black body, Compton, okay, de Broglie, uncertainty principle. All these things will come. Infinite potential will. ठीक है, basics of quantum, infinite potential well, then harmonic oscillator, one dimensional potential. All these questions will come if you say modern as your favorite subject. Even if you don't say modern as your favorite subject, these questions can definitely come. There is no excuse for these topics. Schrodinger equation, definitely Schrodinger wave equation can come. What is a wave function of plane wave? What is a plane wave function of one dimensional potential well? What is a wave function for harmonic oscillator? What are the energy levels of harmonic oscillator? Okay, all these questions will definitely be there in the exam. Now you have to, if you want to study this, you can study Arthur Beiser book, at least 4 or 5 chapters of that book. Whatever was in jam syllabus, read it very nicely and read it again. Questions will directly come from there if you have a good knowledge of Arthur Beiser. If you really want to strengthen your quantum mechanics, you can study chapter 2 of Griffiths. If you study only this chapter, your whatever quantum mechanics you need for integrated PhD interview, that will get covered. You don't need anything more than that. Now the next part we go to is basic electronics. So what is basic electronics? In basic electronics, what are the things they can ask you? First of all, they ask you the difference of conductors, insulators, and semiconductors. So you should know all the differences of electrical properties which are there in these three materials. What are the examples of these three materials? Okay. And how do you plot resistivity versus temperature? All the electrical properties which are related to conductor, insulator, and semiconductor, you should know that. Then electronic properties, they will ask you what are basic op amps. Okay. And they can ask you amperes law, Ohm's law, sorry, simple Ohm's law. In what conditions Ohm's law is applicable? Okay, so all they will not give you any circuit or anything like that, but they will ask you basic questions. They will ask you diodes. They will ask you semiconductor physics. Semiconductor physics, like for example, what are how the diodes are made? What are junctions? Okay, if I give you what is reverse bias, forward bias, okay, and then transistors. What is transistors? Why it is called transistors? What is the reason of it calling transistors? What is a function of transistor? What does transistor do? They just want to see, do you know what transistor do? Do you actually know it is a voltage amplifier or not? Or do you only know how to solve the problems? That is what they want to know. That do you actually know what diode is? They will say, okay, I give you one resistor, I give you one diode. How you will check that which one is resistor, which one is diode? Such a simple question. But you should know how to think like that. That if I give you one diode, if I give you uh, one resistor, how you will check that which one is resistor, which one is diode? This kind of question. And then they will ask you what kind of tools you need to check it. Then you have to tell it that, okay, I need a voltage supplier or I need multimeter. Okay, this kind of answers you have to give. So I will give one practice sheet of questions in which all the questions will be written, that which can be asked from each topic in an interview. In next 1 month, I will keep on giving these kind of question sheets. So stay tuned in the Telegram channel. I will give at least more than 500 questions in next 1 month. Just questions. I will not give you answers, just questions. So you can think about it, which were asked to me in the different interviews. Okay, then comes the basic mechanics. In basic mechanics, they will definitely ask you inclined plane question, pendulum question. Inclined plane question is very simple, like something is on inclined plane. Let's say a disk is on inclined plane. Let's say sphere is on inclined plane and it is rolling down. What is a time period? What is an acceleration? So on and so forth. Okay, something is rotating. What is a, how do you find the moment of inertia? Very basic mechanics question. Just the formula. How do you find it? That's it. They will not ask you to find it. Just the basic, they will ask you, how do you find it? That's it. Then in basic mechanics, they can ask you pendulum questions. What is oscillations? What is an equation of oscillation? How do you write a pendulum equation? Okay, that kind of questions can directly come in the exam. Okay, that you should remember. So basic mechanics questions can definitely come. They have asked me almost in every integrated PhD interview at least one basic mechanics question. For example, they will ask you, there is a stairs and there is a ball. I throw this ball down the stairs. Draw the velocity along x-axis versus time. And also draw velocity along y-axis versus time. How do you plot these two graphs for this problem? Similarly, a bullet is fired. How do you plot the graph? So these kind of basic kinematic questions they can ask you in the interview. So this is the level of the interview which you see in the integrated PhD level. So any questions till here? Do you all understand what I said till here for integrated PhD? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's about statement and SSP?
StatMech, they won't ask you much, especially for integrated PhD. And thermo, yes, thermo they can ask you. Thermodynamics they can ask you only if you tell them thermo as your favorite subject. If you say thermo is your favorite subject, then be prepared for thermo. If you don't say anything about thermo, they won't ask you thermo. This is what my experience is. So in thermo, you know, there is first law, second law, zeroth law, and kinetic theory. In zeroth, second law, everything comes like entropy. In third law, everything comes like a Carnot cycle and all. So all that will come if you will say thermo is your favorite. StatMech, they won't ask you much or they won't ask you at all. You can, if they are asking you, if you don't know about that, you can easily say, I don't know. They won't ask you because they don't expect you to know StatMech very well.
Solid state physics.
Solid state also, they don't ask you. In integrated PhD, they don't ask solid state, but in PhD, they only ask solid state. Okay. So that is the case. They don't ask you solid state. Even if they ask, you can directly say, sir, I have not studied solid state. That's it, done. They won't question you. They will change the topic. So it's always better to say, sir, I have not covered this subject. Then they will not ask you the question. They don't mind. They don't mind at all. Okay. In one or two interviews, I have actually mentioned that, sir, I don't know StatMech at all. So they said, okay, don't worry. And then they changed the topic. Okay. Anything else for integrated PhD interview level? Okay. So is it clear till here? I think these kind of questions are also important for PhD also. Okay. Okay. So now let's move on to PhD interview level. What is expected in PhD? So let's say you are going for PhD interview. Number one thing question which will be asked to you, which can be asked in many places. Why PhD? So be prepared with a very good answer. Why PhD? They don't want to know your personal reason. They don't want to know that you want to become an, they want, you can say, I want to become assistant professor. Fine. Tell this. But more than that, what they want to hear from you is why their department, why you choose, let's say, Center for Nanoscience, or why you choose uh, Aries Nainital only. Why you want to go in this research field only. They will not cross question you. They will not cross question you on this, but make a very good answer for that. Whatever department you are going to, have some basic knowledge of that department. That, okay, what does this department do? What are the research areas in this department? And basically says that, okay, I'm interested in experimental work in this field. That's it, done. Don't go in much depth about the topic or anything like that. If you really know the topics, if you really know the idea, have an idea, okay, I want to go in astrophysics only, I have done my master project in FMSc and I want to continue this, then that's different area concept. But if you are not, you are general candidate, like you don't have any research preferences, just make sure that you say, okay, I am interested in experimental, I want to do the research, I am interested in research, I like doing research, some basic questions, and I feel that in this department I will get these kind of facilities which will help me. So you should name the facilities. Okay, so that's why I want to come to this department. So number one is that in integrated PhD, this is not the case. They don't want you to know that what is in the department because they will teach you there. But in PhD, they expect you to know. Not in every place this is asked, but many places it is being asked. Okay. Now, second, once it is done, the second situation which will come to there is why PhD. Then second question which will be there is ki your MSc project, your MSc project. Let's say you have done a very good MSc project. Then you should mention your MSc project and then tell them, okay, I have done this MSc project and so on and so forth. Have a basic reading of your MSc project because this can be asked in some interviews. It will be asked in many interviews that what is your MSc project. If you don't have a good grip of your MSc project, just keep it simple. Don't go in advance and never say I have not done a good MSc project. Never ever say this. Don't try to skip this question of MSc project by saying I have not done the good project. You can blame it on the institution. Always you can blame it on the institution. Whenever they say MSc project, so say my MSc project was this, but I was not able to make much progress. The reason being my university research facilities were shut down for 4 months. So my MSc project started quite late. So I only got 2 months. So I have done a very basic reading of these things. That's it. You can blame it on the institution, but never blame it on yourself. Okay, I have not done it this very nicely. You can always blame MSc project on your institution. But if you have done a good MSc project, good means you know whatever is in your project. That's it. It should not be an advanced topic, but you should know that what is in your project. Then you can mention your MSc project very nicely and then have a good discussion on your MSc project. Fine. This is how I avoided MSc project question by saying my MSc project was on geophysics and it was actually on geophysics. So no one asked me. No one asked me any question on geophysics. They one or two interview they say, okay, what was that? I explained and there was no counter question at all. Okay. Then third, in PhD interviews, the two subjects which you can never ignore is one is quantum mechanics and second of them is condensed matter. Now these These two will definitely be asked. But what will be asked in these two subjects? These two will never be avoided. You cannot do anything to avoid that. But how to read this? First of all, you have to read Jetly chapter 2, chapter 3. This will give you the basic Dirac notation, evolution of quantum mechanics, or what do you say? Time evolution of wave function, time evolution of operators, unitary transformations, basic Dirac notation, and so on. So these two chapters are must. Then Griffiths, chapter number 2 and 4. 2 is one dimensional potential, 4 is three dimensional potential. Once you know these two chapters, then only thing, basic thing you need to know is perturbation theory. That's it. Very basics of perturbation theory. Once you know all these three things, out of these three things also, the most famous questions come from potential well, harmonic oscillator, barrier, barrier, okay, and Schrodinger wave equation, okay, and wave functions. And one thing they also ask is particle in a ring, which is not in any of the book, but you should study this particle in a ring and how it is related to potential, one dimensional potential, one dimension, or what is it, potential well. So potential well and particle in a ring are quite related to each other, how they are related to each other. So these things will definitely come in your interview. You cannot have an interview without these topics. This is impossible. Okay, then condensed matter. In condensed matter, don't start with reading about BCC, FCC. Don't they those things never come. The first thing that will come is Brillouin zone. How Brillouin zones are formed. What is the basic theory behind Brillouin zone? How Brillouin zones are formed? Number one thing, you should know what is Brillouin zone, how it is formed. That is the first thing you should know. Second thing you should know is band theory. Band theory. What is band theory? What is its statements? What does it says? How do you form the bands? How actually the band comes and how band theory is related with Brillouin zones. That's it. Then in band theory, there is one theorem called Bloch theorem. 100% the question comes. Then free electron theory. Free electron theory. You do not need to know the Einstein theory and Debye theory, but free electron theory you must know. What is a heat capacity? What does free electron theory says and so on. Then electrical properties. Electrical properties. So again, the same question. Conductors, insulators, semiconductors. But how do you connect this with the band theory? How does band theory predict the electrical properties of all three? How does the free electron theory predicts the electrical properties of all these three? Okay, these questions you should know. Then effective mass. What is effective mass and all that? Basic superconductivity. Basics of superconductivity. Like what is the theory of superconductivity? Okay, what is superconductivity? What are the properties of superconductivity and what is the theory? So they will ask you very simple question. Can any conductor be made superconductor if we bring it to the lower temperature? So if I keep on reducing the temperature of conductor, will it become superconductor? Or is there any other condition also which should be followed to make it superconductor? Basic question, but you should know. And this you should know only if you will read the book. And don't read book now. What is that? Puri and Babbar. Puri and Babbar is for exams, not for interviews. There is not even a good chapter which is written in the book which can help you qualify the interview. Always read either Kittel. If you cannot understand Kittel, then you can read Ashcroft Murmim, Ashcroft Murmim, or you can read any semiconductor devices book. You can just search semiconductor devices and you can read the book on that. Don't read Puri and Babbar. That's a useless book for interviews. Kittel or Ashkoff Mummy. And also try to see all the interview experiences of the seniors. There are lots of YouTube videos online. Just try to see. In every interview experience, there will be two parts. One, they will be telling the discussion which happened on their MSc project. So don't go into that. And there will be basic questions. So pick up the basic questions and try to solve them by your own. Try to have a good answer for that because the questions are always repeated in the interview. It is always repeated. Okay. So in your condensed matter, only this will come. Only one more topic which will definitely come is Hall effect. Hall effect, and another will be the trajectories in electric and magnetic field. So how the particles will move in electric field and how the particles will move in magnetic field. Okay, this you should definitely know. This will come. This can also come in integrated PhD. I remember two places in integrated PhD where these questions were asked for me. So this is very important. Hall effect, semiconductor devices, physics you can do. And the same thing I want to mention here is similar. So in semiconductor physics, you know all that Fermi energy level, EF comes. Okay, that you should know. Okay, how the Fermi energy level diagram is there. Fermi energy level diagrams. Fermi energy diagrams for insulators, metals, diodes, transistors. So Fermi energy diagrams for all these things you should definitely know. Any question till here? Is it clear what will be asked in PhD interviews? From which topic it will be asked? Everyone?
Oh, yeah, will they ask to derive something?
No, they will not ask you to design. What kind of questions will come on experimental part? I will tell you. Anything?
मैंने मेरा मैंने जो स्पेशलाइजेशन है वो कॉन्डेंस मैटर में नहीं था, फिर भी मैं क्या बोल सकता हूँ कॉन्डेंस मैटर प्रिपेयर करके मैंने ये का चलेगा?
Whatever you do, condensed matter you cannot skip. They will ask you
They will
questions.
ask. They will ask.
They will ask. You have to answer that. They will come back and back to condensed matter. Whatever you do. Okay. What else they will ask in interviews? They will ask you classical mechanics, Lagrangian and Hamiltonian, basic questions, Lagrangian and Hamiltonian. So if you do JC Upadhyay solved examples, that will be enough. Then phase space trajectories. How do you make the phase space trajectories? Okay, phase space trajectories. Same thing. In classical mechanics, only these two things will come. Basic mechanics question is very rare in PhD interviews. They will not ask you. These classical mechanics is not asked in the experimental branches. It is always asked in theoretical branch only. Wherever you apply for theoretical interviews, it will be asked. If it is an experimental interview, it will never be asked. In theoretical interview, classical mechanics and quantum mechanics, oh sorry, condensed matter and quantum mechanics will always be the champion. But classical mechanics will become more important in theoretical. Then mathematical in mathematics. So they can give you some function and they can ask you to find its poles and then do the integration, which is complex integration and all that. So complex analysis is an important part. Then again, the same thing which I repeated, all the details about the functions, how to plot them and so on. That is also asked in the PhD interviews. That will definitely be asked. So functions will always be asked in the PhD interviews. And the basics of quantum mechanics is very important. Like they will ask you, if I measure the wave function, what will happen to the wave function? Simple questions which we have studied many times. Those will come. And they actually ask you the simple questions that, okay, if some particle is inside the potential well, what is its average position? What is its mean position? If it is in ground state, what is the most probable position? Okay, these all simple questions. Draw the wave function for infinite potential well. So you should know all these things. At least read a good book like Griffiths, as I mentioned. Then your interview will be good because questions will be directly from that book only. Okay. Now, in case you are applying for astro, let's say your department is astro. Let's say either it is Aries or Ayuka or any other. Then have a basic understanding of optics, interference, diffraction, and polarization. Have a very good understanding of EM waves and have a very good of atmosphere, atmosphere layers. Atmosphere layers. There are 4 layers in our atmosphere: ionosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere, okay, stratosphere. So where are those layers? What is the temperature variation in those layers? All this, there is an NPTEL lectures, very nice NPTEL lecture by one professor. Just 2 3 lectures, watch that if you're going for astro interview, because it will be asked. They will not ask you big bang, they will not ask you black hole, they will not ask you stars, they will ask you these questions. Okay, they will ask you about optics, they will ask you em waves, they will ask you if you know atmospheric layers. If you don't know, they will not ask you question, but you should know. So I am telling you in advance only. Okay, so this you should know at least. Okay, then Nobel Prize winners. Nobel Prize winners. So look at the last 2 3 years who won the Nobel Prize, because some professors like to see that if you are connected with the field. So see what their Nobel Prize winners are doing, and in which field they got the Nobel Prize and what was the basis of that. Just the basis. They don't want you be too expert in that, but the basis why they won the Nobel Prize, why it is so important that the people gave them the Nobel Prize. So last 2 3 years of Nobel Prizes you should know. And okay, and this should be very nice, and you should know it is given in experimental or it is given in theoretical, but why it was given and so on so forth. Very important, very extremely important. Okay, other than these three subjects, other than these 3 4 subjects, what other topics which can come? So other topics which can come is atomic and molecular. How atomic and molecular come? Very basic atomic and molecular come. How? Hydrogen like atoms. So if you know hydrogen like atoms, lasers, laser questions can come. If you are specifically applying for some photonics branch, lasers questions can come. Hydrogen like atoms questions will definitely be there. Okay. Then vector model, and you can say magnetic moments, magnetic moments. They don't ask you question from Zeeman effect. They don't ask you question from Pachenbach effect. All those questions which are very famous in exams, they don't ask you. They only ask you question from these 3 topics in atomic. Then similarly, nuclear. In nuclear again, they ask you only questions from basic properties of nucleus, and then particle physics. So what is baryons, what is hadrons, and so on and so forth. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay. Now basic electronics, again, as I mentioned in the integrated, same kind of questions will be asked to you. Basic electronics is same for integrated and PhD. Nothing more. Okay. But one formula that you should know is sigma equals to ne nu. Very important formula. Sigma equals to ne nu. What is mobility? What is conductivity? Why this formula comes, and so on and so forth. So know this very nicely. Okay. Other than that, in PhD interviews, there is one additional thing which is experimental methods. So they will ask you very simple questions, and here you cannot prepare, only your brain will work. So how you can do experimental? There are 2 courses on NPTEL which actually shows you the experiments in the physics. So you can look at those experiments. Very nice. It will definitely help you. But the questions, kind of questions in experimental will come like what was asked to me. Let's say there are 2 jars, 2 beakers. In one of the beaker there is water, in another beaker there is milk, and both are covered. How you will find out in which beaker there is milk and in which beaker there is water? You don't know. You can't open it. How you will find it? So this was one of the question from experimental. Other question is design an experiment to find the gravity at our place. How will you find the gravity at this point? Okay, what is the experiment you will determine? And what will be the kind of errors that can come in your experiment? So if those errors comes, what is the approximate error in your value that will come? So this find the gravity at this place. Okay. And other than that, electronics experiment. Electronics experiments are very famous. For example, I give you one conductor, I give you one insulator, I give you one semiconductor. How you will identify which one is insulator, which one is semiconductor, which one is insulator? So you have to tell us by some electronics experiment that you can determine this. Okay. And then they say, I give you a molecule which has a permanent dipole moment. It has some permanent dipole moment, and one molecule which do not have permanent dipole moment, and I give you both the molecules, and both the molecules are in small glass bottles. How will you find out which glass bottle has a permanent dipole moment molecule and which one has a non-permanent dipole molecule? So you have to think about that. What experiment you will do? Then you say I apply magnet. Then they say how you will apply a magnet. Which magnet will you apply? So all these things they can ask you. But More or less this is less amount of proportion. More of the questions are directly from the syllabus. These kind of questions are less in number, but if you are able to answer these questions, then definitely admission is yours. There is no chance at all that. Also, why people give you the why people give bad interviews? What is the reason that interviews don't go very nice? Because when they ask the question, people try to give the answer. What I will suggest you is you will not be able to think of the answer. So what you start doing is start thinking. Well, start doing something on the blackboard. Okay, insulator. So let's say you don't know the what is how do you find make an experiment which is how do you identify the difference between insulator, conductor, and semiconductor? Then what you start doing is go to the blackboard and start speaking up. Like, okay, so insulator is something which do not have a good electrical conductivity. Okay, it has a big band gap. So start stating the facts. Start stating the facts, and then they will give you some hint, and then pick up that hint. Okay, so start speaking something. If you start speaking something, what will happen is ideas will come to your mind. First of all, it will come to your mind. Second of all, they will see that, okay, in which direction we should send this guy, this person into. And then they will send you into some particular direction, and then you just have to follow that direction. Okay, so start speaking something. Don't think everything inside your brain only. You will not be able to think like that. And inside interview, let's say you are not able to answer any question, or you answered and they said wrong, then cross question. Do the cross question to them. Okay, sir, can you explain it little bit? Don't just bluntly, but sir, okay, sir, but I have heard like this. So cross question, but don't make cross question very big, like 5 6 minutes. Cross question within 1 minute. If your discussion can be within 1 minute, cross question. It helps. Try to understand from them also in the interview. So it feels that you are calm, you are composed, you have a learning mindset. In many interviews, I asked them the questions direct. They told me something and I asked counter questions. Sir, can like how it will be true? Like I think that this will violate this thing. Conservation energy will not be applicable or something like that. Then they will explain you and try to listen very calmly. Don't think that you are in an interview. Then it will be very nice interviews. Okay. So these are all my tips. Do not lie about anything. Do not lie about anything. That if they say, do you have any other offers from any other institution? Say, sir, I have applied to all the places. Very honestly. Definitely tell them. And then they say, why you want to come to this department only? Then very honestly say, okay, sir, I want to come to this department because of these reasons. Okay. And if they ask you very clearly which experimental or theoretical, be very clear about that. Do you want to go in experimental or do you want to go in theoretical? In integrity PhD, you can say, I sir, I have not decided. But in PhD, you cannot say, sir, I have not decided. You have to decide. Okay, so these are all the points which I think in an interview it will help. What else I can do to help you is that I will send few questions every day for interviews from each subject, which you can practice. You can talk with each other. You can search on Google the questions which were direct actually asked from me. So I can Telegram channel, I can daily send few questions. Secondly, I am conducting mock interviews. Every year I take mock interviews. So mock interviews will be in the evening time. So if you really want to give mock interview, you can fill up the form. I have shared one form in Telegram channel. You can fill this form anytime before your interview, and you can then I will give you some time when we can give the when you can give the mock interview. I will give you exact questions which will can be asked in the exam. I will give you the feedback how you can improve and what was your mistakes and all that. Okay. And if we will feel that okay more than one interview is needed, then I will conduct one more interview for you. No worry about that. So these interviews are free. There is no charges for that or anything like that. You can fill up the form and I will conduct the mock interview for you. So this was all about how you can apply after Just and how you can get an admission. Any questions now? Anybody?
Can you tell me the name of the instructor for NPTEL course on atmospheric sciences you told?
Really don't know the name. I can search it out and send in the Telegram, but I don't know the name.
Okay, okay.
Hmm. Okay.
Then send
So
for the
yeah,
methods also.
yeah, I can send that. I know the face. I don't know the name.
Sir, should we study our specialization subject in MSc for the interviews?
Very risky business. If you mention that, okay, the questions will be from. I made this mistake. They said, what are the electives you did? I said quantum optics, and then they start asking me quantum optics question, and I was not able to answer even one of them. Because what you will learn in 1 to 3 months of a subject? Nothing. They asked you quantum optics, you never get a very good idea about in 2 3 months when you have many other things to do as well. So very risky. If you're really confident about that, only then. Don't say topics like but high energy physics. Don't say topic like quantum field theory. This is a big blunder that you will do. Okay, because then they will
Will they
ask you question.
will they
Yeah,
first ask why are my electives, then what should I say?
you should say I have done a basic whatever you think. Okay, what electives you have done, easiest elective whatever you have done, mention that
Okay,
in elective which you are confident. Okay, don't say any name which is whatever comes out of your mind, they will or your mouth, they will ask question on that. Whatever comes out of your mouth, 100% question will be there from that. So in a way you can guide your interview. So speak of those words which you are very confident about. In a very beginning of the interview, have you let's say they ask you question, have you taught someone? Okay. So say, don't say yes sir I have taught someone. Say yes sir I taught the class, and when I was in BSc I taught some students and I taught them electromagnetism, and especially in electromagnetism I taught them electric fields and electric potentials. So this will bring you them to the question of electric fields and electric potentials. Okay, so because now they will ask you the questions from there. So when whatever they ask you, just try to give that answer. Also speak of some topics on which you want the questions. Okay, like example they ask you who won the Nobel Prize. So a person who won the Nobel Prize and he won for quantum information. Now you don't know any idea about quantum information. In the end, just mention, sir, it is very excited to see the story which began from de Broglie theory. Now it has came to the quantum information. So now they will ask you question not from quantum information but from de Broglie theory. You understand my point? In every answer, try to mention some topic which you are comfortable with. Okay, answer questions will come from here. So I can give you an example. In Aries interview, they were keep on asking me the questions about the or some sort of space, and I had no idea about space. I don't know even good any idea. So what I did was I said, sir, they said, how do you go to space? Mega sir, the very first step to go to space is atmosphere. So I spoke the word atmosphere, and I was studying about atmosphere on my UPSC geophysics exam, and then my entire interview went on atmosphere, and I grabbed that interview, and then my selection was there. So speak of the words which you know. Don't give even a single word which you don't know. Okay,
yeah.
understand? Anything else, guys?
Hello, sir. I want to know one thing about ISC Bangalore.